There we are. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Between Two Teachers for Friday, March the 19th. And so much news. It's changing every minute. It may change before we finish. So I'm Consuelo Lara.
I'm Madeline Cronenberg. And as always, we are welcoming you from our sacred lands. And we want to pause to acknowledge that we are here on the ancestral lands of the Ohlone, Muwekma Ohlone, and Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, and pray on their traditional homeland. We offer respect to their elders. And I am so happy to say that this land acknowledgement it is spreading everywhere. People are now, you're hearing more and more, we're hearing land acknowledgements, and that is such a great thing. So the only news this week is about reopening, all of the many reopenings, all of the issues around the success of the vaccine in confronting coronavirus in the United States, right? And particularly in the Bay Area. So we have had our communities move into happier tiers. We were in purple before. Now Mount Contra Costa is in red. There are some parts of the Bay Area that are in orange. And all that means is that the infection rate is much, much less. And the opportunity to reopen the schools is now here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's just so much misconceptions about it.
But the challenges are different. There are many, many, many misconceptions. And you can tell, and it's interesting how different places are handling it. So the two, can't do it right now. So the two places that we're following are Alameda County and Contra Costa County. Alameda County has almost all of its school districts reopening, except in particular Emeryville and Hayward. They're both staying in distance learning, but they are supporting hubs for children. In Hayward, it's after school only, and they're enrichment hubs. And Emeryville has hubs as well, but I'm not really sure how they're running them. But both districts are going to, come back in a hybrid form, I believe, in the fall, the summer as well, but not now in the spring. Contra Costa has an interesting, a different strategy, a little bit. Contra Costa's county website doesn't issue the Alameda County website. Alameda County Office of Education has the list of all the districts in the county and when they're opening, if they're opening, and if they do what they call learning centers, but what we've described as hubs. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist on the Contra Costa website, so you sort of have to dig in. But the answer, if you do your homework, and I did a little homework, is that most of them are hybrid. The ones that are not, which means they're open, hybrid and open, or in the process of being opened, with the exception of Antioch, Pittsburgh, and West Contra Costa. And they are in process, a district that's got a high rate of unduplicated students who are on free and reduced lunch, or students who are English language learners or foster care children. And that number allows you to have additional support from the state, but it also shows that you have the most challenges. And in Contra Costa County, that number ranges from 3% in Orinda to 76% in Pittsburgh. Orinda's back in school.
Yes, for a reason.
Right. And that's really the reason people really do need to look at that, because that number is a clear number, and it completely connects to what the resources are and the abilities of a community to go back. And also the confidence of the staff to go back, which I think is the other big thing, right? I had a conversation with a trustee about trust. And trust isn't an issue if you're at 3%. If you're not worried at all, you don't even have to have trust. It's not an issue. But if you're at 74% like West Contra Costa, 76% like Pittsburgh, or 73% like Antioch, and they're the only ones over 70, that's a concern for your teaching staff.
Yeah.
So they're looking at it very differently, just like the fact is that's the percentage in Hayward. That's the percentage in Emeryville, the schools that decided to stay in distance learning. Yeah. They're not closed. I think that's not true. The thing is, the teachers are working harder than ever.
That's the big misconception, that somehow teachers prefer it, and it's just so much harder. It's so difficult to do, and teachers would love to be back with their kids. It's
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's
they're protective. I think that one of the things that happens when you work in a district that has many children who really need your support, you become very protective. As an organization, you see yourself, we are here and we are protecting these children. These are our, right? And you don't have to have that same perspective if you're teaching in Orinda.
Yeah.
It's not right, which doesn't mean that they aren't important children, and it's just that it means that the level of that attitude of understanding that we want to protect everyone, and we're going to have to do this as a group, as an organization of teachers, is different, right?
Yeah. The teachers know the kids that they're teaching,
and what I hope everyone gets to be able to. They know the community, the culture of the community, and they know that it's important that someone has to stand up to protect them.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. These teachers are voting to do things the harder way. I think it's a heroic vote, because it's much easier to go back.
Yeah. So they don't want to do that because of the kids. And that, that issue of free and reduced lunch, like before COVID, our district was 72%. Free and reduced lunch is really pretty much poverty level,
Yeah, it completely is poverty. That's what we're saying.
So, there's a direct correlation between that poverty level and schools being opened or not, and COVID
right
cases.
Right. There's another district down there that when I was looking around on the internet, a district called Huns, they are 86% free and reduced lunch. They're not even a question. They're distance learning.
Yeah.
There's no way they can do it.
Exactly. No, they couldn't. The other part of trust is, I would think about, because I taught at Helms and at Richmond High. So probably at Helms, I would think, okay, it's very open air, it's all, I would have a little bit more trust that, okay, we can manage this. But when I was teaching at Richmond High, do I trust that air is going to be purified or clean, or that I would say,
that's another whole thing. That is a big thing. And each building and each, all of the efforts that have to be made to make these buildings safe.
Yeah.
It's a real question. It's a real question. So the consequence of all of that is that Emeryville is not, the Emory board unanimously voted to remain in distance learning. So they're not even talking about it. Adelanto they have 8,000 students there in distance learning. Pittsburgh has 3,600 students there in distance learning. An agreement was reached in Oakland, but it hasn't been ratified by the teachers. And there's that, so we have to wait to see next week where the teachers are in the process of ratification. If they agree to that, to the tentative agreement, which is in their case, there is additional support. There's additional funds for teachers who decide who go back, and we'll see where they land. But all week long, people have worked incredibly hard to reach these agreements. I think we really need, including the West Contra Costa board. Their board meeting started at 5:30 Wednesday night and ended at 3 o'clock Thursday morning.
Isn't that amazing? Oh my goodness, come on.
And then, and so then they came back, and then they had to go and meet with the teachers in order to come up with an agreement with them, which they did. So they announced yesterday that they had a tentative agreement for a voluntary in-person option, which we will get to see today when all of the unions and the district are going to issue a joint statement some point later today.
And still though, the membership has to vote. And
Yeah, they have to support it. Next week, they're going to have a town hall next Wednesday.
Okay, all right, so then.
With their membership.
Boy.
That's what they're doing. Mount Diablo, see, this is it. West Contra Costa stayed up till 3 o'clock. Mount Diablo stayed up till 5.
What?
Come up with this. Yes.
No.
Yes, Mount Diablo was up till 5 and to come up with their compromise. And so they have also got a tentative agreement.
Okay.
Right. And the Mount Diablo agreement has its own, each of these has their own emphasis. In the Oakland agreement, there was an emphasis on extra resources for certain zip codes. So that, in fact, the equity lens is, yeah, it is different. The needs are different in each school. And in fact, the needs are different for buildings that don't have windows or buildings that have windows that don't open. That's different from buildings that have windows that you can just open and where it's easy to address the airflow issues. So all of those are very complicated. They're not as easy as we all wish they were.
Yeah.
Right? And today, the national news today was that they're gonna, the CDC, I think, is saying that instead of 6 feet apart, it would be safe to be 3 feet apart.
Yeah.
Well, that changes all of the stuff that they've set up.
Yeah, if it stays at 6, with the size of the classes, it would be impossible. It would be impossible. So you have to change that for sure.
Right,
For sure.
right. And so, and they did, there was, I think, a Massachusetts test that said there wasn't really any difference between the two of those amounts. So
right.
there's that.
Yeah.
And really, that is the big news of this week. Everything else is sort of subsumed to this. We're looking at the next things that are going to happen is, lawsuits. There was going to be a lawsuit in the San Diego parents still have their lawsuit hanging out there.
Yeah, liability.
Against their school district. Their superintendent suggested that they order everybody back in. And then they were told they would be sued by their union.
Oh my goodness.
So there's lots of opportunities for lawyers here.
Jeez. Yep. So, and I think districts are asking from the lawmakers to provide them with some kind of, I don't know, insurance or liability.
Right.
Because they are prepared for it. So they've been, in fact, CSBA, that was one of our talking points, was we need liability. Yeah.
You need liability insurance because because you're being sued individually.
Yep, COVID-19 liability. Yep, that's what
Well, and some of it, I mean, it's just very complicated. There are all, varieties of possible legal actions that can have real serious ramifications. It's about some actions. If you are deliberate, you take an action with deliberation, you have much more difficulty defending yourself as because you did it deliberately.
Yeah, that would be difficult. Another really good one was we were talking to the lawmakers about pension relief, because that takes a big chunk out of a district budget. They want
Yes.
to get some kind of relief from the government, and apparently they did it in the past.
Mhm.
Really helped. So, and it's going to be real critical in the future, because the majority, what do we find out, of like almost a third of all teachers are baby boomers, and like me and you, and we
Right. All of these
want to
teachers, right.
retire. Yeah, so
Right.
that's going to be a lot of people on
Right.
pensions.
And I think this year there are more and more teachers.
Yeah.
This is why we were saying the teachers who, there was nothing easy about this. And the easiest thing would be to return to your classroom. So it also is accelerating retirements. And also the demonization of teachers is once again is accelerating people just leaving the profession, not retiring, but changing professions.
Just quitting, going somewhere else. Yeah. Oh gosh.
So tell us, you didn't have any meetings this week, but you did have some training sessions.
Yeah, the Masters in Governance, where we and also well, we talked about, what was this last one, about student learning and finance, and also a charter schools, that was coming up as well. And just what's great about these trainings now is that they are geared towards county Board of Education, members, not just like the school district and you got to modify it and you got to change it. No, these are specifically, so you're in there with other county board members. And
Right.
The one sticking point for everybody is like the roles, what you can and cannot do. And so that's just got to change. I'm just frustrated with that. Your superintendent does that. You don't do that.
Well, that is county. That's the big difference. In the district, the superintendent is the employee of the board.
Yep.
And at most of the counties, not all of them, but most, right? By far most, the superintendent is an elected official on his or her own.
Yep.
And as an elected official, that not only that, they're the person who's in charge of hiring and firing the people in the office of that county, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything. So
Yeah.
it's a little tricky, but you're still an advocate, and
Absolutely,
and have influence. So everything is, up for giving direction to. And so those are always interesting, really interesting conversations to have. But yep, that has been about it. And I got another training tomorrow. Oh boy, not a good training.
there you go. Say this, but there are so many changes that it makes total sense that we have to, especially around the legal part, because that keeps changing every day.
Yes.
And and new laws are made. Depending on what happens with the reopening of schools, some of these lawsuits are going to move forward, and there'll be new case law as a result of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't have to. Hopefully there'll be, everybody will be able to come to some agreements.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So I wanted to give a shout out this week to all those people, the negotiators, the board members, everybody who worked after midnight, especially those who made it to 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock.
I can't believe that.
They did. And this was the week that happened. And I'm sure, I mean, I know of 2 districts, right? The 2 districts here, Mount Diablo at 5 and West Contra Costa went to 3. And I was still waiting for them to come up, and I had fallen asleep, but I had the audio on. So as soon as they announced it, it was like an alarm clock. So I went over and I heard their announcements, and the trustees were very serious and also, exhausted.
No
So, so a big shout out to all of the trustees everywhere who are working so hard, literally burning the midnight oil, trying to find ways to compromise, to bring all of our children and our staff back together into their classrooms.
Yep. School board members. They're like right in the middle. That's who's getting the brunt of the school board members, really.
That's the truth. And their hourly salary is going down when they're working 24 hours a day. The amount they get per month. People think they make all this money.
Don't get
No,
no.
no, that's really, that's another, we should do an episode about salaries, what people think about electeds, because it's not what you think it is.
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
Just to clear that up for folks. Do we have a chuckle from Carlos? I don't know if we have one.
No, we don't have one. Came on real quick, so well. Yeah.
All right, that's right. So we're just gonna have to double down on Carlos's chuckles next week. Maybe we'll be able to announce who's back and who's not back and what has happened in the mystery of.
Things should have settled down a little bit. Yes.
We should have a lot of answers right now. We're closer and closer. We should have a lot of answers by next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.